Last week, my wife, Louise, with a little smile and a nonchalant tone, told me she was organizing a small get-together with some colleagues. Nothing special, she said. She also said I'd need to head out, and offered to have my friend Billy watch me for the night. On the day of the event, she walked me out with a sweet, easy grin. Normally, I wouldn't have thought much of it, but this time, there was something off. It was like a subtle unease had taken hold, an inexplicable sense of anxiety. So, I decided not to spend the night at Billy's and came home early to see how this quiet meeting was actually going. When I turned into our street, the noise level went up. There were cars everywhere, way too many for what Louise said was a little get-together. I was already drowning in the music from the doorway. It wasn't an ideal setting for a conversation, with all that booming, thumping music that made it feel like a real party. I opened the door and there was a scene that was far from what Louise described. Strangers were filling our place, all with drinks in their hands, and loud laughter and chatter spilling out into every corner. It wasn't just some friends gathering. And then I saw them. She was outside the kitchen, with some guy I'd never met before. He was tall and had an athletic build. He was standing really close to her, his hand on her hip. She didn't see me right away because she was laughing at something he was saying, but the way she was looking at him and the way her body reacted to his touch made me feel sick. It wasn't just some feeling, it was a punch to the gut. The casual meeting Louise had arranged had turned into something else entirely, and when I got home suddenly, I realized how wrong I had been about her. I stood in the doorway, taking in everything around me. There was Louise, deep in conversation with some guy. They seemed so close, like they were glued together. I started thinking about all the questions. Why was she laughing so much? Why was her head tilted like that? Why did she have her hand on her hip? It was all way too intimate to be just friends. I felt my insides shrink. Was I overreacting? I didn't want to be jealous. But something felt wrong. I wasn't just going to stand there and watch. As I walked towards them, Louise noticed me. For a second, her eyes widened and her smile faded, but then she quickly put on her usual mask and smiled again. The fake one, like nothing had happened. "Hey, you're back early," she said, pulling away from the guy a little too quickly and trying to act casual. But I saw a flash of panic in her eyes for a second. And the guy, who was he, didn't even blink. He just stood there with that smug grin on his face, like none of it bothered him. It was like he knew something I didn't. "Yeah," I said, trying not to let my voice get too loud as I looked Louise in the eye. "I decided to check out this quiet meeting you were talking about." Her smile faded a bit, but she kept trying. "Oh, you know how it goes," she said with a too happy voice. "Some co-workers brought a few friends, and it just grew." I turned to the guy, feeling my anger rising. "And who's this?" Louise paused for a second. "It's Frank," she mumbled. "He's a work friend." "A work friend," I repeated, feeling my throat tighten. But everything about their body language and expression suggested more than just platonic friendship. This wasn't what she was leading up to. I couldn't tear my eyes away from them. Frank seemed totally relaxed. In fact, he seemed too at ease. It was like this was all normal for him, like he felt right at home, standing close to my wife in our own home. My stomach twisted tighter and tighter. Her explanation didn't sound convincing anymore. Not this time. "A work friend, huh?" I said, clenching my fists, tasting the words on my tongue. My voice came out sharp as a knife. I stared right at Frank. "You seem way too comfortable for just co-workers." Frank raised an eyebrow without missing a beat. He sipped his drink, grinning. "We all have friends at work," he said like it was nothing special. Louise was fidgeting nervously next to me, casting quick glances in my direction. I could tell she was trying to silence me with a look, but it was too late. My mind was already putting the pieces together. I noticed she moved a little forward, creating a barrier between me and her. I kept my eyes on her. "You seem to be getting along well." Her face tensed. "Dave, stop it. You're being ridiculous. This is just a party." Her laugh sounded strained, like an echo in a void. "If nothing's happening, why are you so tense?" I asked, taking a step closer and lowering my voice. She blinked, totally surprised. For once, her confidence wavered. She chewed on her lip and looked away, but I already saw the truth on her face, ready to spill out. And then it did. She glanced at Frank again, and that one glance was enough. There was no more casualness, no friendliness in their eyes. There was something else, something I hadn't seen between them for a long time. Then I realized, it wasn't just my imagination. Something was going on. Louise caught my change in expression. She saw it all come together in my mind. She got more defensive, like the walls were closing in on her. Her mouth opened, like she was about to come up with another excuse, but I wasn't letting her off the hook so easily. "So, how long has this thing been going on between you and him?" I asked, my voice tight as a string. Her eyes went wide, and there was a hint of panic in them. For a second, I thought I might lose it, but then it was over. "How long has it been going on?" Frank just stood there, the smile fading from his face. He didn't say anything, just watched, giving her a chance to lie again. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice shaking. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. Seriously, Dave, it's not like that. Don't even try it." I cut her off, my voice rising. "I saw the way you look at him. You can't just tell me it's nothing." She tried to say something else, but her words just got caught in her throat. She glanced back at Frank, and there it was, that guilty look on her face. I knew it wasn't an act. It was real. I took a step forward, staring at her. "How long has this been going on?" I demanded, clenching my fists. "Do you think I'm stupid? How long has it been happening?" Sarah's face went pale. Her usual carefree mask finally cracked. She looked like a cornered rat, and for once, she didn't have a quick answer. All her excuses were gone. I felt my anger boiling, mixed with betrayal, building up in my chest. "You promised me," I hissed, my voice shaking with rage. "You said it was just a little thing. But it wasn't about the party, was it? How long have you been deceiving me?" She swallowed, not meeting my gaze. Suddenly, it hit me that the truth was worse than I thought. There she was, standing in front of me with her eyes darting between me and Frank, like she was trying to find a way out. But there wasn't any escape. I wasn't letting her go until she told me the whole truth. Finally, she let out a long, shaky breath. Her voice was a whisper. "A few months." My heart skipped a beat. Months. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You've been doing this for months behind my back?" There was no answer. She just looked away, her silence louder than words. The air felt thick and suffocating in the room. I heard the party going on around us, but it felt so far away. It felt like I was in some kind of nightmare. Those words, "a few months," hit me like a ton of bricks. I looked over at Frank, who'd been watching us the whole time without saying a word, still so calm, like he didn't give a damn about what was going on. I was so mad. "You knew she was taken. You knew who I was," I growled as I walked over to him. "And you didn't care, right?" He just shrugged, like it was no big deal. "Look, man, it's no biggie. Sarah and I were just messing around, that's all." Messing around. That word just made me so mad, like a fire was burning in me. My blood was boiling with anger, not just at him, but at her too. It wasn't some random fling. It was my whole life and marriage, and to them, it was just a game. I turned back to Lou, my voice shaking with rage. "Is that why you destroyed everything? For a couple of months of messing around? Did you cheat on me for that?" She winced, but she didn't show any guilt. She was still trying to defend herself, still looking for an excuse. "Dave, I didn't mean for this to happen," she stammered. "It wasn't supposed to get serious. I never meant to hurt you." Too late, I thought. The damage was done, and there was no going back. Her lame excuses just made the fire inside me burn brighter. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "What, you mean it wasn't serious?" She tried to twist reality, trying to downplay months of cheating. She not only broke my trust, she shattered it. And now here she was, standing in front of me, and she couldn't even admit the extent of the damage she caused. I exploded, raising my voice. "You call that frivolous cheating on me for months with that guy? You lied right to my face and pretended everything was fine, and now you expect me to just— What? Just ignore it." Her face tightened, and for a second, something flashed in her eyes. Guilt maybe, fear maybe, but it quickly turned into anger. Dave, I didn't mean for things to end like this, she said, almost pleading. But you were so distant, so wrapped up in your own world. I felt like I didn't exist. My stomach twisted as she tried to twist the situation around, her words making it sound like it was all my fault. She twisted the truth, making me think that her cheating was my fault. So what? I interrupted sharply. You felt ignored, and instead of talking to me, you decided to look for comfort elsewhere? Is that what you're saying? Silence filled the space between us, heavy and suffocating. Every word she didn't say underscored the depth of her betrayal. I glanced at Frank, still standing there, smug and uninvolved. But it wasn't his fault. She chose to lie and cheat, and now here she was, trying to make it seem like it was inevitable. You know, Lou, I said in a cold voice, my patience finally running out. I'm done with your excuses. You made your choice, and you ruined everything between us. Her eyes flickered, maybe with regret, maybe with realization, but it was too late. I saw the cracks start to show in her facade. For a second, it looked like she might crumble under the weight of her actions, like the full weight of her betrayal was finally catching up with her. But then she crossed her arms and her voice hardened. You really think I did this? She asked, her tone defensive. That I'm the only one to blame? Her sudden defensiveness caught me off guard. I expected her to be sorry, maybe even apologize, but this was not it. She was still trying to put the blame on me, and I was not having it. Oh, sorry, I said, with a hint of sarcasm. You're right, it was my fault. I let some random dude touch me at our party, totally my fault. Her eyes were flashing with anger. Do you really think that's how I wanted things to go? Do you hear yourself? We've been drifting apart for years, Dave. I tried to talk to you, tried to make you see how far away you were. But you never listened. I was feeling lonely. Lonely. The word echoed in my mind, like it was twisting the knife deeper. I wasn't about to let her play the victim, after all she'd done. So Frank was your savior? You didn't try to fix things. You just hid behind my back. If things were that bad, you should have left. But no, you chose betrayal. It's your fault, not mine. Frank was quiet, his smug grin gone. He wasn't part of the conversation anymore. It was just Sarah and me now. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said, her voice shaking. The pain behind her words was clear. She was talking, but I could feel it too. You had stopped caring about me long ago. Her words stung, but she wasn't changing reality. No, Louise, you're not a victim. You made a choice, and now you're trying to blame it on me. But the truth is, this is all on you. For the first time, she was at a loss for words. Suddenly, she realized what she'd done and the weight of it all hit her. But it was too late. The silence between us was unbearable, and for the first time, I saw Louise lose her confidence. All her old stubbornness and attempts to shift blame disappeared, like the life had been sucked out of her. She just stood there, looking at the ground, hands limp, posture slumped, no more defiant gestures. She looked confused, unsure what to say. To be honest, neither was I. But inside, I was still burning with anger. She couldn't just stand there looking sorry. That wasn't good enough. I wanted her to understand she was the one who had messed everything up, not me. You don't get it, do you? I finally broke the silence, my voice soft but heavy with all the unsaid words. It's not just that you cheated on me, Louise. You crushed me. You made me question everything, every moment, every word, every memory. And here you are, pretending it was all inevitable. Like I forced you into it. She looked at me, her eyes full of emotions I couldn't read, regret, guilt, maybe even fear. Was it fear of losing me, or fear of what would happen if I found out? I never meant for this to go so far, she whispered. I didn't plan it. I was just confused. And then Frank. He was there. I shook my head in disbelief, a bitter grin on my face. Was he just around? Is that all it took? Some guy gave you attention and suddenly you're over me. She tried to say something but nothing came out. She knew there were no excuses left, no more lies to save the day. For the first time, she realized the seriousness of what she'd done. But it was too late. I stepped back, feeling the full weight of what had happened. I'm done, I said, my voice softer but still firm. Leave your excuses and guilt. I don't want to hear them. This is over." I started to leave, and this time, she didn't try to stop me. But just as I was about to walk out the door, something changed in her expression. For the first time that night, she took a step toward me, her voice cutting through the silence. "Dave, wait." Her voice was full of desperation, breaking the stillness, like a thin mask had finally cracked. But there were no more words to speak. I stood by the door, not because I wanted to, but because there was something inside me that needed to happen. I needed for her to understand how serious this was, to realize she couldn't take it back with just a few sorries and sad looks. "You can't just do that," I said, without looking back. "You can't act like it matters now after all the lying and pretending for months. You made your choice, Lou, and you have to own up to it." Her voice wavered again, this time softer, almost like a whisper. "I know I screwed up. But we can still fix it, right?" I turned to her with a sharp look, cutting her off. "Fix it?" Disbelief and bitterness laced my voice. "You really think there's anything left to fix?" I shook my head, resentment and pain mixing in my chest. "You ruined everything, Lou. You took our relationship and threw it away like it was nothing. And now, you want to bring it back?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't care anymore. It was too late. Her lies, her cheating, all of it broke me. Months of pretending everything was okay, while she was flirting and laughing with someone else behind my back. "I don't know what you were expecting," I continued, voice cold and firm. "But it's over." Her tears finally spilled over, but I didn't feel a bit of sympathy for her. It was too late for that. I'd given her everything I had, and she'd just stomped all over it. Without saying a word, I just turned around and left, leaving her, her tears and the mess of our lives behind. The night air hit me like a slap to the face. With every step away from my house, it felt like I was climbing out of quicksand, like I was finally breaking free from the suffocating weight that had weighed me down for months. The sound of the party faded away, disappearing along with the illusion of the life I'd thought we shared. Instead of relief, all I felt was emptiness. Rage, betrayal, all those emotions burned inside me like a wildfire, leaving nothing but ash in its wake. I had lost Louise way before that night, and maybe I knew it deep down. But to actually see it, hear her excuses, watch her stand there with that guy, it tore me apart, and I wasn't prepared for it. I got in the car and just sat there for a minute, my hands tight on the steering wheel. All the plans we'd made, all the promises, were gone. Now there was just this bitter emptiness, and I had no idea where to go from there. But then, as I stared out at the empty street, this strange, quiet clarity came over me. Louise had made her choice, and so had I. She'd chosen lies and betrayal and fun. I chose to move on, and for the first time in a while, I felt like I was in control of my own life. Taking a deep breath, I started the car. The engine roared to life, breaking the silence as I drove away from that place. I didn't look back. Nothing was left behind. I knew it was going to take a while to get over it and move on, but I knew one thing. I deserved better. From now on, I'm not settling for anything less than what I deserve. The key thought in this story is the realization of one's own worth. The main character, despite the shock and pain of betrayal, eventually realizes that he deserves better. Sometimes people think that they have to endure for the sake of preserving a family or relationship, but this is the wrong approach. Relationships built on deception and lies cannot be healthy and harmonious. It is important to be aware of your value and not allow anyone to reduce it. The story also raises the issue of forgiveness. Can a hero forgive his wife? Is it possible to restore relations after such a serious betrayal? The answers to these questions depend on each individual and situation. However, one thing is clear here. Forgiveness is a process that requires sincere repentance and tremendous self-improvement on both sides. Without this, it is impossible to move forward. And finally, this story reminds us that it is important to be honest with yourself and with others. It is impossible to build long-term and strong relationships if one of the partners is constantly cheating. Honesty, openness, and respect for each other are important in any relationship. If these components are missing, then, as history shows, the result will be devastating. As a result, The moral of the story boils down to the fact that lies and betrayal sooner or later become apparent, and everyone should be ready to take responsibility for their actions.